Hey, 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 welcome back to Goals and Greatness Podcast, your weekly dose of business banter, big ideas, epic fails, and the systems that make the dream work with your favorite duo, Kat and Lou.
Double the expertise, double the fun. I'm Lou, your navigator on this wild ride of risk-taking and rule-breaking.
And I'm Kat, your go-to guru for all things startup. Together, we're unzipping the secrets of success and taking you behind the scenes of our crazy world.
Whether you're a CEO in the making or you've just scribbled your first business plan on a napkin, we're here to fuel that fire and help you unleash your greatness to achieve those big, bold goals.
So entrepreneurs, visionaries, and everyone in between, get ready to join the ride with Kat and Lou. Let's turn up the volume and unleash your greatness. Hey everyone, welcome back to episode 4, Goals and Greatness Unleashed. Hopefully you guys enjoyed last week. We want to keep hearing from you on what it is that you're getting, what it is you want more of, what's helping. That helps us out. But we are here today to tackle a conversation around culture. And I'm excited again in the future. We've got so many incredible mentors and friends, colleagues that really dive into some of these areas and expertise, and we're stoked. But to give you just a really great overview on culture, as a whole, when I brought this up to Mary Lou, she was like, we could talk about this for hours. I'm like, yes, we could. We are not. We are going to talk about it for under 30 minutes is the goal. so let's dive in.
Let's do it.
Culture. How do you, when I first brought, so in your head, when I brought this up as a topic, where did you go where you're like, oh my gosh, there's a lot? Like, how do you define culture? What are things that you're looking at? I want to hear about your initial,
yes.
Whoa, this is a mountain. Let's hear it.
Well, as soon as you said culture, I was like, I have thoughts. But first, I'd like to say I feel like one of the most signature quotes about culture is John Maxwell, "Culture eats strategy for lunch." I think that's John Maxwell. Mm-hmm. And I have held that quote so close to me as we've built teams and as I've built businesses and organizations in the past, is how your team, the bar for your team that you set, that culture that you have, that's going to beat out any other strategy. And it's so true. Like last episode, we talked about when I built that receptionist team, and we had, I didn't really have great strategy, but we had great culture, and that culture drove people to take a lot of actions, and those actions helped beat out most people's strategy. So, for me, I think I would define culture not just, and this is what I told you when you brought up culture, is that I feel like everybody always thinks about culture as, oh, is it pleasant in my office? Are we having great days? Are people happy when they come in? And I think, yes, that's important. And it's a very small part of culture. The part of culture that I look at is, what is the culture of performance in your team? Like, is there a culture of performance, like culture of excellence, culture of sales, a culture of, accountability? There's so many little pieces of culture. Yeah. I mean, and for you, over all these years of building great teams, I feel like the one thing people always comment on is just the culture. Like when we had people cross train, like, wow, this is just such an amazing culture, and so much went into that. But yeah, that's what culture is for me. What is it for you?
Well, I think that it's like the values, the beliefs, the attitudes, and the behaviors that really characterize an organization, right? Like, what do we want to be known for? How do we act? How do we show up? How do we treat each other, right? I don't know if you remember ever times where part of the culture for me was if somebody gossips, like if they tell someone, oh, did you hear da-da-da-da? One of the things that we instilled, and again, this goes to behavioral activities, right, is to go, oh, have you talked to them yet? Oh, right. And this culture of like, we're in this together. We're a team. We're a family, right? And it was a behavioral culture of, we don't gossip. Like, that's not what we do. We uplift each other and we help each other and we support and encourage each other in figuring out solutions. And so if something there's having, or like, oh my God, I can't, Mary Lou's driving me crazy. And I'm like, oh, well, have you talked to her about it yet? Oh, no. I'm like, dude, reach out. Why don't you start there? And let's have a conversation to help you out, right? So it's a very simple thing. But again, it's the values, it's the beliefs, it's the attitudes, it's the behaviors that characterize. That's how I look at it. And culture is not just like an HR concept, but really a key driver of business outcomes, right? Because it influences everything from employment engagement to decision-making processes. Your marketing will show, some of that, like the attitude, right? The behavior, like, is it a fun, energetic, young place? Is it a more serious, buttoned up, professional feel? Like that is an aspect, right? But that's not all that culture is. So I answered your question, but yeah,
No, no,
for
you
us,
did. Yeah,
were you
you did.
talking about how we built stuff or what it took or or was that?
Well, yeah, I wanted to know like just how you define culture too, because I do feel like everybody looks at it differently, and you can take
Mhm,
great things from every definition, of
mhm.
course. Um, but yeah, how did when you look at it, what were some, I guess, defining moments, defining action steps that helped build that great culture in your organization? Or how did you do
Before
it?
we, yeah, well, before we dive into that, I want to like, cause I like that, I feel like can take a big chunk. I had one more thing that I was just curious about,
Yeah.
to share, because I've had, um, newer managers who are like, I hear people talk about culture all the time, right? But like, I don't understand like why it's such a buzzword or why people talk about it so much, right? And so just before we dive into the how and how we build it, like what are the what do you feel? And I'll share
Yeah,
some of
what are
mine,
the
but like
benefits?
what are some of the benefits of having, like, when you saw our teams, when you saw business as you built your agriculture, one of your companies, and then now as you're bringing on people in different areas, like what have you seen being a byproduct in my culture, but then building your own, the benefits of a strong company culture? uh, what did you notice? What have you seen? What has it done?
Yeah, I think with when you have I've seen good culture and I've seen bad culture, so I can speak to the pros and cons of both. I feel like when there's good culture in an organization, there's not a lot of questioning. And not that questioning is bad, but there's not a lot of negative lines of questioning. Like I remember when you used to run training, you used to tell people, don't give me these what if crazy scenario questions of like, well, if I do this, what if the sky falls? Like, okay, that's
Mhm,
not going to happen.
mhm,
So, like, I feel like um, good culture doesn't lead people to always think the worst is happening, but to look
mhm,
for the best in what's happening. And I think that that just seeps into every action people take. Like, here's a good example is I remember when when we had just finished the $2 million year, the first $2 million year in the company history, and we had certain people leading the organization after that, and we did. I feel like we did not do well. We weren't doing well that spring, and we actually had a meeting. You had been traveling that January, as you always travel in January, and before you were leaving on to that large company trip that happens in March, it was kind of like a oh crap emergency meeting. We're not hitting numbers. We need to sit
mhm,
down and talk. And I think that one of the biggest things that we realized was that we had a broken culture in the office, which was crazy because
mhm.
we had just come off like the biggest
A
year in
record
a
breaking
district
year.
office history. And I think what happened there and why we weren't performing, and this is a con of having a bad culture, it definitely just brings down the overall performance of your organization, is
Mhm,
we didn't have a mission, we didn't have direction, we didn't have a compass guiding us to make the right decisions on a daily basis. So we had this meeting where you said, what do we want? What kind of people do we want to be? What kind of leaders do we want to be? And
mhm.
when we were able to define all those things, that gave us our compass to
Yep.
be able to make the right decisions every day. Because when we would look at a situation, all we had to do was go back to our mission and say, well, does that make me a determined leader? Does that give mean that I
Or
have good work ethic
compassionate
or bad?
leader or
Exactly. Yeah.
mhm,
So I think it just gave us our compass, and
mhm,
that was a really big benefit. And then the con when we didn't have good culture was that we were underperforming, and
mhm,
it was all just a culture shift.
mhm.
Um,
Well, I
and
think
what about for
positive
you?
culture, well, I was gonna say, I think positive culture and like employee, it really enhances when you're looking at, you have a positive culture, but really the employee performance and the loyalty, like when people feel good, right? When people are being served, when people are supporting each other, when for me, it's always been about family. Like I love working in partnership because I love working with people that I love, right? Like I love being around them. I love being with them. I can build with them. And so for me, I've always wanted to create this like everyone's welcome, you're supported, you're loved, like this family type environment, like a healthy family, not the bad family, the healthy family that has each other's back no matter what, right? And like that feel of like, I will take a bullet for you, and so yeah, I think that the what you talked about with like just boosting productivity, right, and retention, which we'll chat about in another episode, but that is a big factor, but also enhancing employee retention, right? Engagement. And so think about like just people have, because they're happier, because they love the people they work with, because they're feeling good, whatever it might be, like those are positive elements of a great culture. It leads to higher job satisfaction and a different level of commitment, and I think that when the culture was good, when people came and they were, cross training in our office and seeing like how the heck we were doing so great or how we were breaking all these records or whatever, what they saw was that people actually like enjoyed being around each other. People supported each other. People encouraged each other. People picked up where one left off, right? It was like, hey, hey, let me help you with that. Let's finish this. Let's do this. And there was no cutting corners. And if someone needed to cut corner because maybe they had to get somewhere, maybe they had a meeting with a client or a family dinner or something, it wasn't like they cut corner and they left and the job didn't get done. Other people were like, dude, we got you. Go be there. Like, we'll finish it up the right way, and so do as much as you can and I'll pick up where you left off type of thing, right? And so that definitely there was this level of commitment of like, we're going to get the job done. Right. And I think that it also improves, and depending again, what industry, but impacting customer satisfaction. And it really like, it can help with like the brand, reputation. Like people knew us, like they knew us everywhere, all over the North America, because, we had a chant, we had a team chant, we had a team name, like, and I played in sports forever. I like that team culture. Like that's a big thing to me from being a collegiate athlete, and playing club volleyball always when I was younger. And that's something that I really enjoy. And I think that, naturally I attracted a lot of athletes because that was the culture we had. It was competitive. It was, but supportive. Like we all worked individually, but also worked together for a team goal. And, everyone had to have their own self-discipline, but also be able to work in that team environment. And we had a lot of fun with that, so I think that, those are just some of the benefits. I know there's more, but I would say engagement, productivity, retention, and just overall satisfaction for those who are like customers or sales reps or whatever being there, because they really like the feel of things, and how things run.
And people still talk about that team, by the way, like to this day. Remember when you guys were in Miami and, so it's just, it just, yeah, like you said, just that culture could be so huge for an organization. And there were so many times where I felt like we didn't feel like doing things, but just having a good culture in the office helped you kind of get through. And our culture kind of got us through a few campaigns in the office, like, and it's, I'm sure, sour, to bring up for you, but like another good example is the year that your sister passed away that summer. And when we all kind of had to pick each other up, it was supposed to be a building year. Like nobody knew what they were doing, really, the leadership in the office. And it was a year where we all kind of had to step into something new. And I feel like if there was a bad culture, people probably would have quit. But instead of quitting, because we believed in the mission, we set the moral compass of our office in the beginning of the summer. Everybody was just ready to step in instead of step out. And I think like in critical moments of like life, having your business have good culture can really be a saving grace. And instead of being completely destroyed, we had a great summer. So I don't know if you view that time the same way, but I think our culture carried us through. I don't think we would have survived otherwise.
1000%, 1000%. I agree with that fully. It was amazing to see what happened. And, I think even for myself, years before you started, one of our biggest years in our company was one of the most challenging years ever. And had it not been for the culture that I had built with our people, and part of our culture, I don't know if you remember, even when you started in 2011, was champions find a way. That was one of the value statements of our people, because we wanted people being able to find solutions. Like, champions find a way. Like, we're going to figure it out. No matter what happens, no matter what challenges come our way, no matter, like, we're going to figure it out, right? That's going to happen. And that was a big mantra, a big, part of our culture. And when I remember one day in the end of May, just broke down in my desk in tears, bawling, because we were getting kicked out of our office. Cars were getting towed, like a bunch of stuff was happening. And had we not built that culture, I might have folded that day. Like, I mean, everything was stacking through the week, but my staff came in and they looked at me and said, "What's up?" And I said, "Just everything's going to shit right now. This is going on. This is going on. This is going on. This." And they said, "Champions find a way. We're going to figure it out." Right. And like, that brought me back, like, I'm getting teary-eyed thinking about it, but I'm like, shit, dude, I don't know that I could have survived personally had that not happened. And then again, like you said, in 2013, when my sister passed and I was a shit show, I wasn't there. You guys were doing it. But had we not have built that culture where we support each other, we figure it out, we find a way, I don't know that we could have survived. And we didn't just survive. We were number one in North America, right? That year as well. And you guys did a phenomenal job. So anyway, cool to think about. And I get emotional sometimes,
No, it's okay. But yeah, and you know what? I do remember when I first started, Champions Find a Way was there. And even when we moved to Texas, we took Champions Find a Way over to Texas. So yeah, it's just to show, like, if you build it correctly from the beginning, like, how lasting that could be. Because I mean, I was years removed from the squad that originated that Champions Find a Way, and we were able to bring that even a decade later to another state, which I guess leads us into the next part of our conversation, which is, okay, so we know it's good, we know what it is. Now, how do you build the culture? So what are your initial thoughts on that when we talk about building a culture?
Well, I think there's two parts to it, right? There's one, if you're building from scratch, which are going to have similar components to this one, but there's one if there's already an existing culture that you might not love, right? And so we'll just go with that one, because then the next step is the same for all, right? So I think that it's really important, if you already have things moving and you're like, man, I want to shift culture, or I really want to build a strong culture, is to get a feel for what it looks like. Maybe you don't know. Maybe you're like, you're not saying I have a bad culture, but you don't know what it feels like, to be on the other end. And so I think doing things like sending out an anonymous survey and being able to say, how do you feel about communication? How do you feel about teamwork amongst peers? How do you feel about teamwork between upper and lower management? How do you feel about, and just looking at all the different pieces of, like, because, and this goes back to, like, do you know what you want it to look like? Right. So I guess we can rewind that and go, number one, you as the leader, as the founder, as the CEO, as whatever it is, the shaker and mover, have you taken time to really sit and think, what do I want things to feel like? How do I want people to support each other? What do I want it to be like to work here, right? One of the best cultures I've ever gotten to firsthand experience, like walking into it and seeing it, is Organifi. When I went to their headquarters back in 2017 or 2018, I remember walking in and I said, this is what it's about. And it's stuff that I did in my office, but I haven't seen other big companies, or like just walking in. They had a wall. I don't even know if I ever told you this, but they had a wall and it had people's names and it had like their goal, their big goal for the year, right? And it was almost like dreams list type stuff, right? But they would celebrate and they would talk about, like, they would help, oh, we're getting one step closer to getting you that vacation or getting you this, or when they, hit a new account, it was like, oh, one step closer to this, right? And they were implementing that. Everyone had a voice, right? They would share, like, what are some things that you feel can better this or better that? Like, that was a culture I wanted. I said, I want people's voices to be heard and for them to feel like their voice matters. I want people to know that this is a vehicle to build the life of their dreams, that they can develop skill sets, that they can create obviously income, that they can develop themselves professionally in ways that are going to open doors and provide anything. And so whatever time they're with me, how is this moving forward? I wanted them to use my work experience, right? Like being a part of my organization, any business I've had, and this is true for any company, is I want them to know that this can be a vehicle to help them live the life of their dreams if they want it to be. That's part of our culture. This isn't the end all be all. This is a stepping stone, right? And I love that. I think I had mentioned, I talk about Matthew Kelly's book, The Dream Manager, all the time, because it changed my world in 2006 when I read this book, right? And I remember 2006, 2007, when I read this, and I was like, man, there were all these people who were dying to work at this janitorial company. And it's not like all these people wanted to go clean toilets. I mean, they were like, everyone wanted to work there. But it was because that company was taking time to help people better their lives. They were not looking at people as another number, another toilet cleaner. They're like, how can I impact this person's life? And they were helping people pay off debt, buy houses, like do stuff that they never thought they could do. Very, lower end income. And then they were, I want to start my own business. I want to have that. They were helping them do that. And there was someone who told them, how can you afford to do this as a company? You're going to lose all your workers, like, don't you want them to stay? Right. And it's like, no, we want to see them grow. But that was their culture. And guess what? They always had tons of people coming in through the door because word of mouth, everyone was like, you got to work there. You got to work there. They helped me buy a house. They helped me start my business. They helped me do this. And everyone wanted to work there. Now that might not be everyone's thing, but that became mine. And it has been mine for almost 2 decades, like once I'm like, that's what I want. I want that when people work with me, this is a stepping stone to the next thing. And some people, they might be able to have stepping stones within my organization. And for some people, this is going to prepare them for the next thing. Awesome. Whatever that is, I want them to feel like this really moved them forward in their lives. That was part of my culture. That might not be for you, but like, I'm just sharing some ideas, but it's like thinking about, okay, like I said before, I want this culture of support, right? Of partnership, of having each other's back, right? Because then that translates later into, okay, so what does that look like? And we would say, well, when something like this happens, how do you respond to that? If someone has to leave early, are you like, oh, what the hell did you do? Like, are you working as an individual or are we working as a team and going, I got you. Like, what do you need? Let's go through this or whatever, right? Like, because it's like, what do you want? And then how do you see it through? Like, what does that look like in terms of day to day in your business, right? Which is kind of the second part in terms of implementing a great culture. Like, one, you need to know what you want it to look like. Then the second part, I think it's really important to co-create, which I haven't gotten there yet, right? And then being able to discuss together the implementation and how it shows up in your day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month, or just regular operations, right? So yeah, so that's first is like, where are we going? First is think about what it is that you want your company to look like, feel like, how people treat each other, how people show up. Go ahead.
No, just to add to that, because I don't want it to get lost in the mix, is when you think about what do you want your company to look like, you also need to look inward, because as an owner, founder, leader, everybody's going to do whatever you do, and then like at a lesser level. So if you expect to have a culture of people who are hardworking, of people who are buttoned up, of people who have each other's back, you have to be the number one. So I think that while you do that for your company, you also need to do it for yourself as a leader and identify those things and not be afraid to share that with your organization. Let them know, hey, these are the things that I'm working on, and hold me accountable too. This is how I want to be, and this is how I want to lead you.
I love it.
I remember you did that with us multiple times, and I did that with people multiple times. And it just humanizes you. It doesn't make you feel untouchable to them, but also it lets them know, like, if she's actively working on this, like, I can work on this too.
You want a secret sauce of mine here in this arena?
Yeah, why not? Share it. Spill the secret.
So this is one of the things, it goes in so many different areas of the business, by the way, like it can show up so many different ways, but like when you have solutions or you have an idea or you have whatever, don't let it just be yours. Okay. So yes, know where you want to go. Or like, let's say we had an off week in the business and it's like, oh, we got to fix this, that. You can go to a staff meeting and say, hey guys, we need to fix this, that. But there's a power in co-creation. Okay. You want to be a kick-ass leader, co-create as much as possible. All right. What does that mean? Create it with your people. Even though you might have all the answers, let them be a part of that process. So if I'm a newer manager or starting, I'm like, okay, number one, I've got my vision in terms of what I want it to look like, the culture. Then I'm going to go have a meeting with my key people. Maybe it's 2 people, maybe it's 5, but who are the key people that you really want to build this with? Okay. Maybe it's your spouse and you're like, hey, I wanted to sit down and talk about like, our ideal culture as an organization, as a business, or whatever. What does it look like? What is it? And sitting there and being able to have conversations for them to shoot out ideas on what this, and I mentioned this to you when we created our mission statement. Were you a part of that one? No,
Yes.
that was
No.
or one
Well,
of them.
we did one later on, but I don't know if I wasn't there for the original. No.
Yeah. So I've done this different times in my career, but like even something simple as a mission statement, like being able to come together with the people that are going to be helping carry that out and build the company again, whether it's 1, 2, 5, 7 people, and letting them have input in terms of like words, phrases, things that are important to them, right? Because they feel way more connected being a part of that. And that's a ninja thing for retainment as well later, which we'll chat about in another episode. But I think that when you take time to do that, they really have this different level of buy-in. There's definitely more like they help carry that culture out because they helped create it. They came up with it, whatever it is, or solutions. Same thing for solutions. We have a problem. You know what you need to fix it. It's like, hey, y'all, last week we were lacking in this area, or this happened. Like, I'd love to take a couple minutes to brainstorm ideas on things that we can do to fix this or to elevate this, or whatever the area of opportunity is. And so people start shooting out things and I'm like, okay, awesome. Who wants to own this? Who wants to do this? Versus you going, you do this, you do this, you do this. Okay. Versus I want to do that. I want to do this, right? It's this culture of like people taking ownership, right? Like that is part of the culture that I wanted for my business. So anyway, think about that. How
Yeah, well,
about
you
you?
used to do that. Yeah, no, you used to do that all the time. You used to. I remember you would write things down that I guess went wrong during the week, and then at the staff meeting, we'd put them on the board, and you would say, we would pick one, and then you'd say, what do you guys think we can do to change this? And everybody would give their ideas, and then you would allow us to take ownership of that idea and implement it if you felt like that it was going to bring anything to the organization. So I love that about co-creation. I think that's huge. It helps give people a voice in the organization. I think a lot, and one of my mentors used to tell me people don't quit on jobs, or people don't quit on people, they quit on jobs. And I think that that's all because of the culture, right? Like they're going to see it as a job if you're just telling them what to do. When you involve them, now this also becomes their organization and they're not going to want to give up on it when things go bad. They're going to want to make it better. And I think co-creation definitely helps them own it. And I've had a lot of people tell me before, I just don't know why this person doesn't own this. Why can't they just own this job in this department? Well, because you're treating it like a job. You're not giving them the opportunity to own it. You're just telling them what to do and you're expecting them to do it, and you don't want their input. And is their input always going to be great and on point? No, but sometimes people, like, you'd be surprised when you empower somebody to be able to like do something or carry out an idea, or maybe you take their idea and help them tweak it so it can actually work and they run with it. Like, you'd be surprised the results that you get from it sometimes. And I feel like that's how a lot of programs were built in our office. So yeah, go ahead.
100%. No, I was going to say that we could go on for like 4 hours when it comes to, I'm like, I literally run 4-hour workshops for people on like how to put together their, like, their culture. Cause there's so much, we're not going to dive into all this stuff, with this right now. But I mean, there's so many things in terms of looking at the mission, the vision, right? The core values, like the integrity, innovation, respect, teamwork, customer focus, like looking at organizational strengths and aspirations, like, and what's contributed, what values do we want to have? And then like, how do we carry those out, and really being able to create statements for each of these values and how they're supported. And there's, and then how to embed them, right? Which was the other thing I was saying is like, once you have them, it's like, how does it show up? Like there's the leadership modeling, which you just talked about, right? Like they need to see it in you. There's communication strategy that has to be there in terms of making sure we're regularly communicating the core values through channels like meetings, newsletters, whatever's going out. So just keep it top of mind for the employees. Maybe it's even like in a team meeting, be like, hey, great job with our value of like teamwork makes the dream work, right? Which was a slogan of ours. Stepping up. I know that, Paz had to go to blank with his mom, and like, just thank you for staying the extra 2 hours, past your shift to like make sure we crushed, that recruiting event that we had, or, whatever it is. But it's like you're bringing those things up of like that are reinforcing people carrying out, the values of the organization. And anything you recognize, you're going to see more of. And on the flip side, managers, business owners, you want to see more of something, talk about it more, right? Find it, find people doing it, find that. And that's a whole other discussion for another day.
So much. There's so much.
But that's huge, and being able to have like integrating it into policies and procedures, or different recognition systems, looking at feedback and continuous improvement. Maybe it's quarterly check-ins with the team on how they feel things are progressing in those areas when you first launched out new initiatives or values, or culture programs, and what they feel could happen to make them better, right? Or deep dive them. And I think that the last thing I'll say, and add or ask whatever you want, would be, you want to keep integrating that culture. You want to keep it alive, get your people spending more time with each other as people, right? And so that's what a lot of companies have, company trips, right? Or corporate retreats, or different, like, incorporate that. For years, people said, like, you do a lot of stuff with your people. I'm like, I want them to like each other. I want them to stick around, right? That helps with, and like they are on a mission to carry certain things out, but like, do you pour into your people and help them in their growth? And do you create space for them to spend time together? Whether it's a payoff trip, it's a dinner night out, it's a weekend getaway, or it's a huge blowout for hitting blank number for the year, or getting this many more clients, whatever it might be. Having rewards for things, recognition, but doing it in a way where it allows them to spend more time together. And that is another thing that, when you asked before about culture and how we built that and what we did, like, that was a big part, was intentionally finding ways where they could spend more time together out of the office.
Yeah, and just to play from our last podcast episode, that's why it's also important to find people you enjoy getting along with, so that right. So that you want to do these things and you can have a cohesive team. But no, I think you hit the nail on the head with everything you were mentioning there. And I've been fortunate to be a part of that culture, and like I said, of poor cultures too. And I would really encourage business owners to not sleep on it. We can get so caught up in the day-to-day tasks that when it comes to working on the business, I don't feel like we take enough time. And these things are so important and can really help you move the needle from having an okay team to having an exceptional team. And even if you look across the industry we worked in and industries that I've worked in, what makes the difference between somebody just operating at an okay average level to operating at a higher level is the culture of their team and the excellence that their team brings to their industry and to their organization. So, anyway, we can do another episode on culture. I feel like we probably need it, but I think this was definitely a good starting point and foundational episode for culture. I'm ready for a fun question. What about you?
I think we should call it wacky question of the day. Just okay. One wacky question of the day. I don't know. Maybe I don't know if you're wacky.
Yeah, I'm a little bit loony, but somebody has to be. I was gonna say I don't know if the questions are loony as much as the responses are, but I'm cool. Wacky question of the day: if you had a time machine, which era would you visit, and what would you do there?
Definitely the 1920s, and I would be a flapper. I would 100% be a flapper. Dancing.
What would you do?
Tassels. Dancing. I just told you I would be a flapper. I would be dancing on the stages. I would be an entertainer.
But like, you just want to go there for the dress, or like the culture of the time?
I just wanted to go dance. That's what I want to do. And my second choice, even though you didn't ask me, but I'm gonna let you know, would be the like Grease Lightning era, like late 50s, early 60s, and hang out with the bad boys and go to the diners and obviously dance, a little swing dance in action, and have a great time with that. If you don't know, I like to dance.
She loves to dance. I don't know. Maybe if I was at the party long enough, if you catch my drift, I'll start dancing. But
When
yeah,
you
no,
drank a
for
lot of
me,
water.
yeah, when I drank a lot of water and I ate a lot of chips, I'll totally dance for you.
What's yours?
I'm,
What's yours?
I like to play the music, pick the music, request the songs. But for me, I'd say born in the 60s, teenager in the 70s
You hit
type of
me.
area. Yeah, just like it, on and honestly, like I just totally enjoy the music of that time. My
Mm.
dad, fun fact, in the 80s used to be a DJ in Miami, and he built a huge portfolio of vinyl records. And when we
Oh,
moved from my childhood house, he sold a bunch of them, but then I just like stole all my favorites. And they're, aside from like the Elvis and the Beatles, I have like mainly like 70s rock records. And for my wedding, I was gifted a record player, and it's just my favorite music of all time.
I
I
love it.
love the style, I love the music, and yeah, just awesome. So that's what I would choose.
Oh, I lied. And I might have mixed my eras and years. You know what I really want to do too? What's my
Disco.
favorite? No, like delight, like the supper clubs, the super clubs, and maybe that is in the flappers era. I'm trying to think, but like to be a singer in one of the like nightclubs late at night, like
Oh,
Who what was it? Jessica Roger Rabbit, like back in the day movie. I can't even who
like
something
a
Roger Rabbit.
ragtime type
And
of
she had the
thing.
red hair, and then they kind of redid a
Jazzy
version of that
Jessica
with the
Rabbit.
mask. The mask did
Yeah.
a like Cameron Diaz played that role. That and I would be a singer dancer as well. Anyway, it's all around singing and dancing. But by the way, same deal. Like, and that this is something we'd love to hear your comments. And not just to the episode. Yes, we want to know what you learned. We want to know any questions you have, but you can also answer the wacky question of the day.
That would be
Help
so
us get
fun.
to
I'd
know
love to
you
know.
guys. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, and if you want to again get in touch with us, ask us any questions, like we're here to support you guys and answer any questions that you have, hopefully through a podcast episode. If not, if you want to reach out to us directly, you can get us on goalsgreatnessunleashed.com. It's also in the about section under the episodes. If you ever lose it, link is in there. But thanks for tuning in on this discussion about culture. We're definitely going to be doing a part 2 sometime soon. Bye bye.